Hey Ramblers, before we kick off today's episode, thank you for even taking the time to listen to the podcast. We appreciate it. If you love the podcast, toss your 2 cents in using the hashtag Let's Ramble and make sure you hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on all the latest content and updates. Visit us at our new website at offsource.tech and make sure to follow us across all social platforms at Assistance HQ. Now let's ramble. And now, a moment from our sponsor. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of The Ramblings. I'm your host, Angelo Roberts Jr. And today we're playing catch up. Tonight is a long night of work that I've already done, and now it's time to do a podcast sprint. So I will be doing close to 12 podcast episodes tonight in some way, form, or another, whether it's me just doing an hour-long segment and breaking it down into two. However, I will be knocking down 13 different podcasts tonight. And it's all because I got to play catch-up, honestly. Honestly, it's because I have to play catch-up. We are so behind on the podcast. I am June 13th, so I am backlog on podcasts that I was supposed to do that I didn't do. And now we're here. So I actually have so much that I would like to share that I can't share based on just timeline of how things are. Because, I've been kind of thinking about these things since last week and everything and whatnot. So I've just been playing with the idea of like a name change and some other stuff that you'll get to later on in different podcasts, because I just don't want to mention that stuff right now. But things have been moving pretty okay. This new Brian client, Brian, is going to be a blessing of a client. It's actually why I got into the business in the first place, just so I could be around people like this. And I now have, we've talked about the founding team. We've talked about having a founding team now, which is looking a little bit different. And by the day at this point, my founding team seems to be on the teeters right now. I don't know why I'm talking solo. It's one of those times, this particular, I guess, moment, subject, topic, whatever you want to call it, is a mellow, calmer talking moment. I get hyped, and I'm usually hyped during my lives. That is also a thing. I'm going to be taking some of my lives and putting them up for podcasts, because I've had some great lives, and that's one thing I have not missed. I've yet to miss a live. And now, after tonight, I'll have yet to miss a podcast. Even though I've missed a couple of days, you go up there and you'll see a podcast for each and every single day. So, just a matter of making sure it gets done. Today I really want to talk about a conflict I've been facing, and it's the battle between trying to give away as much for free, which is my Gary Vee form of thinking, and then I call it my Wolf of Wall Street thinking, like my hustle, I need to sell, because at the end of the day, as a company, you still need to make money. So in being a huge Gary Vee fan and understanding what he says and listening and taking it to, a heart level and implement action. When I say taking it to heart, I mean just implementing it in action. That's all I mean by taking it to heart. I don't mean that as like I live it by as a mantra. I'm not saying it's my 100% lifestyle. I'm saying I implement what I feel is necessary into action, because I feel like, hey, if this can work, this can work. The only way to find out is to implement it in action. So that's really where I'm at right now, is implementing my philosophies, thoughts, theories, things I hear from other people, strategies that I'm thinking of. All of that has to be implemented, because as we know, there's no point in just thinking of it and not actually doing anything about it. That's where you might as well have not even thought about it. You could have spent your time doing something better. Like, if you're going to think about an idea and then not act on that idea, unless you weigh the pros and cons of acting on it and something like that. But if you're just going to think about something and not do anything based on it, why think about it? You could have spent your time doing something else. Like, if, for example, if you're going to buy someone's book, right, and you're going to read this book and you're going to implement what's in that book. Like, let's say it's something like a Udemy course. You buy one of those flipping courses or stock courses or how to start a business courses, or any one of those courses that you can get on Udemy, right? So you're going to buy that course and then do absolutely nothing with it. Honestly, you should have bought something worth buying, like a watch, Netflix, put it towards bill or something. Honestly, there was no reason for you to to waste that money on something of value and then not take the value and then apply it and then actually get the value from it. Because guess what? Learning how to trade stocks is cool, But if you're not going to apply or use that knowledge, what is the point of learning how to trade stocks? If you spent $1,000 to learn how to flip houses, what is the point of not actually trying to go flip a house? I can understand if you're like, okay, I want to flip a house, and you go and try and flip a house, and you're like, you know what? I really don't like this. I'm going to do something different. No, then that's not a waste of time. But to try it and actually not even implement or bother to implement it, that's kind of like a double waste, because not only could you have been doing something else, you could have been doing nothing. You could have just not done that. You could have not spent that money to do that and wasted your time, your energy, and your money in this particular situation. So I'm at a crossroads, if you will, for trying to implement a balance of give, as well as making sure I monetize. Because in the startup world, as a startup company, you're faced with a lot of different hearsay. So from people that are starting businesses that have talked about successful businesses and are doing different things, they're the people that are saying, you got to do all of this, you have to be patient, X, Y, Z, and then, they're like, okay, you're not going to take a certain amount of time to be profitable, certain amount of time to have fundings, if you even decide to go a funding route, but they kind of breeze by that, right? When a lot of tech company startups go through the funding process, you know, while a lot of businesses also don't get funding, a lot of businesses do get funding, and funding can come in many different areas, whether it be a loan, a grant, friends and family, actual VC, angel investor, or all of the above, or whatever, Kickstarter, GoFundMe, whatever you did to raise money is you raised money. Some companies go, some companies don't. However, all of these successful founders is what we'll say, all of the founders that end up being successful all say you have to do X, Y, and Z. And so when you actually go to implement X, Y, and Z, whether it be implementing patience, whether it be implementing a business plan, implementing pitch deck strategy, implementing a marketing strategy, whatever you go to implement, right? That's going to cost. It's going to take time. There's going to be different, what's the word I'm looking for? There's going to be different channels of navigating what you have to actually do in order to accomplish. It's like the saying, it's easier said than done. And that comes when it comes to implementing things. However, you have to actually implement. And that's where the issue is, because now you can get to the point of implementing, and now you're like, okay, how do I do this? So you might hear someone say, give away things for free. Now, obviously, business owners know you can't give away absolutely every single thing for freaking free, because you're still a business and you still need to make money. Yet, if they're going to sit there and say the key is give away things for free, do more marketing, use social medias for marketing instead of like worrying about TV and commercials and stuff, focus your money on attention or going into TikTok or whatever it is easier said than done. Because now that when Gary Vee says you have to contextualize your content and put out as much content as possible, all of your best stuff that you would normally charge for, that's content, put it out for free. Now, the issue in that is implementing how do I put out my best content and then still have enough of a value proposition for people to still want to use my service or still want my product. You have to find the balance, and that's really only comes from implementing. People get all the way up to the implementing part and they're like, well, then I don't know how to implement it. So they just don't try it. Where the key to knowing how to balance isn't by coming up and learning how to balance. It's not saying, well, this is what I have to do and this is how I'm going to balance this out. No, it's by going in and saying, okay, well, I did too much here. I didn't do enough here, and then changing it. You're not going to come in and automatically just be balanced. There's going to need to be some form of adjusting. And so I'm in that adjustment period where I'm trying to find the best way to adjust what I'm really doing. I'm trying to give as much as I can for free, as much as possible, while also being the Jordan Belfort and trying to make as much money as possible. Because in the end of the day, when you're, depending on who you're listening to or who you're dealing with, when a lot of people are listening to outlier kind of entrepreneurs and founders. You're listening to people like Gary Vee, Tim Robbins, Jim Rohn. All of these people are outlier situations and what makes them great. For the majority of people, you are going to be dealing with regular, normal people. For example, if you come across a VC or angel investor, the chances of them having an attitude like Gary Vee are extremely extremely slim. So they're going to be looking for traditional numbers. They're going to be looking for traditional returns, traditional everything. Pitch decks, that's a little bit newer, but it's become the new tradition because no one wants to look at your business plan. Your business plan is literally just for you. And at this point, if you make a pitch deck, it's like making a lean business plan because you don't need to make a 40-page business plan. I did like a 10-page one. And then in honesty, you can even narrow it down to doing a 10, 12, 15 page, not page, slide deck, pitch deck. It's not going to be as much detailed kind of information, but it's really to give you the gist or the idea of what your business does. So that's what I'm really trying to balance out right now is my Jordan Belfort and Gary Vee thought, theology, mindsets, whatever you really want to call them, because the goal in what I'm trying to do is grow at an exponential rate while maintaining a proper brand. Because for some reason, freelancers of the finance admin world have a bad name for some reason. If you were to think of just certain key roles, like if you're a small business owner and you're looking for an accountant, you're going to want a referral. And why are service businesses highly based on referrals? Because small businesses don't have trust. Unfortunately, think about that. Small businesses don't have trust. And what is trust? Trust for a small business is, hey, you're a freelancer. That means I have to pay you before you get the work done, depending on how you operate. For example, my company, my startup. In order for us to do any work, you have to pay us first. So for small businesses that don't have the resources or have the extra capital just lying around to say, okay, yeah, if it happens to waste, I can waste it. That $300, $400, $500, $600, $700, $800 can be a huge chunk for them. So they're going to be very, very, very cautious and careful about how they spend that money. So as a service or as a business, you have to establish trust, which is why referrals are important. However, the only way to get referrals is to get sales. So how can you give away stuff for free when you're trying to get sales so that you can afford to give away stuff for free? It's a balance, which is why a lot of businesses don't make it. There's no balance. The amount of it's weird. It's a weird balance, right? As a CEO, you have to balance personal and business life. However, balance doesn't mean 50-50. That's where I feel like a lot of people go wrong in that. And I actually thought about that and it was like, okay, yes, balance isn't necessarily 50-50. But now that I say it out loud, it has such a different ring, it's a different connotation. It feels different when I say balance isn't 50-50. Balance means the scales are even. It doesn't mean that each object weighs the same. It's about that brings in priority. Because when you're talking about your priorities, and you're saying, okay, well, this is important, and this is important, and this is not important, this is not important, this is not important. When you think about it, those non-important things are technically kind of important when you think about it. They are important tasks. However, they are not as important as these other tasks. So when in comparison to the other tasks, they're not necessarily considered important. For example, grocery shopping. Grocery shopping is an important task. Why? Because as a human, you need to consume food to eat. So if there's no food in your fridge, guess what? You're going to need to go grocery shopping or eat out because your body needs food. However, when you compare that to something like making sure your bills are paid at the end of the month, like your rent, what would be the option? Rent, food. Well, I know if I get rent paid, I can get food whenever, and I may go a day too hungry, that's fine. However, if I miss rent, I'm going to be evicted. And now that creates a whole new problem. Whereas if I just handle the rent and I have to find a way to get food or something, it's a different type of resource. I can go to my mom's house and look for dinner or something. I can go to a friend's house and bum a dinner or something like that, you know? However, you can't. It's much easier to bum a dinner than it is to bum a couch or a place to stay. So priorities, balanced. Doesn't mean that they hold the same weight. Doesn't mean that they're equal. It just means the scale is here. That's all that means. And it's theoretical because obviously when you're looking at a real scale, in order for it to be equal, they have to weigh the same. When it comes to business, though, it's a theoretical scale. It evens out based on applied pressure. So as you apply pressure here, you have to apply pressure here. But in order to make it balanced and give you the right amount, you may have to apply 75% pressure and then 25% pressure, or 50-50, or 25-75, or 65-35, whatever that number might be. You have to find balance. And balance isn't necessarily saying that everything is going to be equal, but that's just saying that, say, everything held into account, this is the best and most balanced path to take because it allows me to do, the most efficient version of this, as well as maximize, my time or hours or money in a different area. So in struggling with, in my Belfort Gary Vee kind of side, it's almost like an empathy meets sales approach, because it's like, dang, I need to have empathy. I need to hustle. I need to have compassion for others, understanding, and I need to be genuinely happy with what I'm doing, and that's very important. So when I think about those things, I consider that my Gary Vee side. I'm trying to be empathetic to, my coworkers, who I work with, my clients. They have issues. They have, they aren't necessarily taking certain things out on me. It may not even have anything to do with me. It so many different things that go into being empathetic, making sure you're giving out the best content, providing the best value. But at the same time, I am trying to start an empire. I am trying to start a Fortune 500 company, a Forbes list. I'm going to be future Forbes 30 under 30. And that needs money. That requires funding. That requires sales. And there's a bunch of shady ways to do that, but I don't believe in doing shady tactics. There's a bunch of sketchy, illicit, unmoral, legal things that you can do that I still don't think that I should be pursuing. So but it's not that thought doesn't come across, it's not that, trying to be a salesy kind of person and saying, listen, if you're not giving me money, we can't speak. It's a different attitude when you have that. And so I'm trying to avoid that kind of attitude, but not being so much of a, yes, I give everything for free and I'm scared to charge, because at one point that was a particular case for me. I was scared to charge, where it's like, how much money do I charge? This is the most amount of money per hour that I've said, this is what it's going to be called. And so if someone wants to come to me and says, I need a month of work, I have to be comfortable saying, well, okay, this is going to cost $1,800. And if you can't afford that, then we may not be able to work together. But at the same time, understanding that I got into this business to help small businesses, and that small businesses don't have the same capital that established businesses have with employees. And even though those are still small businesses, it's important to understand the difference between a non-employer business and an employer business. It's a couple of $100,000 if you didn't know. For example, a business with one person, non-employer firms. There are 24.3 million non-employer firms in the United States. The average income for non-employer businesses is $56,000 a year. Or $46,000 or $56,000 a year. The annual average revenue for a company with 1 to 4 employees, literally 1 to 4 employees, that's the next bracket up. I mean, in terms of the SBA.gov, it goes 0 or 1 to 20 range. However, if you look at the companies that only have 1 to 4 employees, the average annual revenue is $357,000. I think it's 357. However, there's 300, like 20, 330, 340, 300. It's more than 200,000 times I said times. It's more than $200,000 more than businesses without employees. And that's just a number to be astounded at. If you're a small business with no employees, you make $46,000 a year, something like that, right? As a business with only 1 to 4 employees, and I can vouch for this, having been part of a company with 1 to 4 employees, they on average make about 300 something thousand dollars. Now the the person I was working for was doing around $200,000, but it goes to show you the difference in revenue as an employee. And so understanding that I have to be patient with these kind of particular people because they have a different thought, they have a different process, they have a different mindset, all of these different things, I have to, understand that. So in that, I have to balance that with, okay, well, I still need to make money. I still need to be able to support myself. I still need to be able to live. Meaning if you don't have at least this, we can't speak. Yes, I can work with you, but if you don't even have the working amount number, then I'm sorry, I have to say, no, I may not be able to help or speak with you at this particular moment. That's not to say I'll never be able to help or speak with you, but at this particular moment, that would be counterproductive to what I'm trying to do. And I'm not trying to be counterproductive. So it's really just trying to establish that balance line, because it's when you understand that boundary line, is you have to understand the exact limit. What makes something good bad? If on a scale of 1, when you go on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best, there's a bunch of numbers in the middle, and 1 point can literally put you over from being good to bad. For example, if you have an 89, that's a B plus. If you have a 90, that's an A minus. So you have to give yourself clear boundaries and clear distinctions on what you will and will not take. Everything at this particular figure, you will take. Just say yes. If you can meet this particular criteria, minimum, say yes. If you don't meet this criteria 100% all the way through, thick and thin, all 5 points, all 4 points, all 3 points, all 10 points, whatever it is, if you don't meet it and you're missing one thing, then I can't work with you. Because 1 point is the difference between you saying, you know what, I'm going to take on this client, and then being a 100% hassle, headache, and cost to you, versus you taking on a client and you having at least a measure of knowledge on what to deal with when it comes to this client. So that's really where my headspace is at in terms of trying to balance just business, life, and dealing with, clients and people. It's a hard world out there, and I try to just do my best. I will say this, you can't harp on the mistakes. That's something you can't do. You can't harp on any mistakes that you make. You have to just be able to put your head down and continue going, because you're going to make mistakes. You're not going to be 100% balanced. You're going to be teeter-tottery, and guess what? When you're teeter-tottery, you fall. It's the way of life. If you're not balanced, you're teeter-tottery. And when you're teeter-tottery, you're more prone or likely to stumble and fall. So I'm trying to work on being better at that. Hey Ramblers, before you go, make sure you're following us on social media at Assistance HQ across the board for all content and exclusives. And for an even more personal touch, subscribe to our weekly newsletter with the link in the description.